The train ride no one saw coming. The sound of the train echoed through the underground station like a giant heartbeat. It was late evening in New York City. The platform was busy but quiet in a tired kind of way. People stood in clusters checking their phones, holding coffee cups, dragging their bags behind them. The kind of crowd that had seen enough of the day and just wanted to get home. Among them, wearing a simple jacket and jeans, stood Keanu Reeves. No one noticed him at first. He didn't draw attention to himself. He was just another tired soul waiting for the train. Keanu looked around. The station walls were lined with old posters peeling at the corners. A violinist played softly near the wall, her open case holding a few dollar bills. The music was gentle. It reminded him of something from long ago, but he couldn't place it. His eyes drifted over the people. Young, old, rich, poor. New York was like that. It squeezed everyone into the same spaces and didn't care who you were. Then the train arrived with a rush of wind and sound. The doors opened and people flooded in. Keanu stepped inside. It was crowded, but he didn't mind. He was used to being among strangers. He actually liked it. He moved toward the middle of the car and spotted an empty seat beside an older woman, probably in her late 60s. She had a thick coat, a hat with a feather, and a sharpness in her eyes that looked like it had been carved over years of judging. As Keanu approached the seat, she suddenly stuck her cane out across it. Not resting it, not placing it gently, she slammed it across the seat like a barrier. "This seat is taken," she said coldly. Keanu paused, giving her a polite smile. "I'm sorry, I didn't see anyone here. I said it's taken," she snapped. Then her eyes narrowed, scanning him. "Besides, people like you should stand." The words didn't hit like a slap. They hit like something colder, something deeper. People nearby looked up. One man raised his eyebrows. A young woman's mouth dropped open, but no one said a word. Keanu stood there for a second. Then, slowly, he nodded. "All right," he said softly. He moved to the side, gripping the metal pole as the train began to move. The ride was bumpy. People swayed. The city outside blurred through the windows. But inside, silence grew heavier. A mother holding her baby looked at Keanu with quiet sympathy. Her child reached out toward him. Keanu gave the baby a small wave and smiled. The baby giggled. The mother's eyes shimmered with understanding. The old woman didn't look up again. She stared straight ahead, her jaw clenched tight. But that moment did something strange. The train had always been a place where people kept to themselves, but now eyes were shifting, minds were thinking. Someone near the back whispered, "Was that Keanu Reeves?" The whisper grew like a ripple in water. Phones came out quietly. Heads tilted. People began to realize something. That the man the woman had blocked wasn't just anyone. He was someone known for kindness, for generosity, for humility. The woman didn't notice the change. Or maybe she didn't care. A young man with a service dog stood up and gently tapped Keanu's arm. "Sir, please take my seat." Keanu shook his head kindly. "Thank you, but you need it more than me." The train hit a bump. Someone stumbled. Keanu reached out, caught a falling briefcase before it hit the ground, and handed it back to its owner with a smile. A few people nodded. Some even mouthed a quiet "thank you." Then the woman spoke again. Louder this time. "I don't know why everyone's acting like he's special. He's just another man." Someone finally spoke. A teenager near the doors said, "That man has done more good in this world than most people ever will." Others nodded. Another woman added, "He's helped charities, saved lives. He treats everyone with respect, even when they don't deserve it." Still, Keanu didn't say a word. He just stood there, peaceful, holding the pole like it was the most natural thing in the world. Then something happened that no one expected. The train came to a stop, and from the other end of the car, a man in a suit walked in. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and wore a security badge. His eyes scanned the train, and when they landed on Keanu, he walked straight over. "Sir," he said, "the CEO would like to personally invite you to the VIP car up front." Keanu looked surprised. "That's not necessary." The man smiled. "She insists, and she says she owes you for what you did last year." The car went silent. The woman with the cane blinked. Who are you?" Keanu gave her a soft look. "Just someone who believes everyone deserves a seat." The doors opened. The security man guided Keanu forward. As he walked, people began to clap, not loudly, but with quiet respect. It wasn't about fame. It was about how he handled disrespect, with dignity. But just before he exited, Keanu turned back, his voice calm, almost gentle. "The world's heavy enough already. Maybe we can all make it a little lighter by not blocking someone else's seat." The doors closed behind him. The woman looked down at her cane, and for the first time, her fingers trembled just a little. The train moved forward again, but something had changed. People started talking to one another. A man offered his seat to a tired nurse. Someone helped an elderly man with his bag. It was like Keanu's silence had spoken louder than any words. And up in the VIP car, a woman in a wheelchair smiled as Keanu entered. "You saved my son's life," she said softly. Keanu sat beside her, and for the first time that day, he felt the weight of the world ease just a little. But what neither of them knew was that someone had recorded the entire scene. And by morning, the whole world would be watching. The video that shook the city. The next morning, the city woke up as it always did. Noisy, restless, full of horns and hurried footsteps. But something strange was happening online. Buried beneath celebrity gossip and morning weather updates, a video was starting to rise. Someone had uploaded it late at night, almost anonymously. The title was simple: "Woman tells man to stand." Then the truth shocks everyone. At first, it blended in with the thousands of videos that appear every day. But then, people started to watch. And they didn't just watch. They shared. The video showed a grainy train interior. At the center of it, a woman sat stiffly with her cane stretched across the seat. In front of her stood a calm, quiet man, his hands lightly gripping the pole, a gentle expression on his face. The camera shook slightly as it zoomed in, and that's when the comments started to flood in. "Wait, is that Keanu Reeves?" someone asked. Another replied. He didn't even argue, just stood there, calm as ever. Then more voices added. That woman said something horrible and he didn't even flinch. Within hours, the clip was on every social media platform. Influencers talked about it. Podcasts played it. Morning shows replayed it with commentary. But what hit hardest wasn't just who the man was, it was how he acted. No anger, no judgment, just quiet strength. Meanwhile, the woman in the video remained unaware. Her name was Mrs. Dorothy McLean, a retired teacher who had lived in the same rent-controlled apartment for decades. She wasn't rich, but she carried herself like royalty. To her, status was everything. What neighborhood you lived in, what shoes you wore, how your skin looked. She believed she had earned the right to speak her mind because, as she often told her neighbors, "I lived through times harder than this, child." But by noon, her phone began to buzz. Old friends she hadn't spoken to in years messaged her. "Is this you?" someone wrote, attaching a video link. Others were not so kind. "Shame on you. What a disgrace. You had no idea who you were talking to, did you?" Confused and angry, she opened the video. Her hands tightened on her phone as she saw herself on the screen. She watched her own expression, cold, dismissive, and she listened to the words she spoke. "People like you should stand." Her own voice echoed back at her like a ghost she didn't recognize. "This is fake," she muttered. "Someone edited this." But as the video went on, she heard the quiet voice respond. "Everyone deserves a seat." And then she saw the slow clap begin, the respect that followed, and Keanu Reeves being escorted to the VIP car. The train door closed. Her face, still frozen on screen, became the symbol of something bitter and old-fashioned, something the world was slowly trying to leave behind. By that evening, reporters gathered outside her apartment building. Some wanted answers, others just wanted a picture. She pulled her curtains closed and refused to come out. "It's all nonsense," she snapped at her neighbor. "People don't even know what really happened. They're judging me like I'm a criminal." But the neighbor, a young woman named Jasmine, didn't flinch. "Maybe they're not judging you for what happened. Maybe they're watching how you respond to it now." Mrs. McLean slammed the door. On the other side of the city, Keanu sat in a small bookstore cafe away from the noise. The owner, an older man with reading glasses and a quiet smile, had known Keanu for years. They spoke very little. Most of their conversations were through looks and gestures. Comfort didn't always need words. But that day, the owner placed a newspaper on the table. On the front page was a still from the train video. Keanu standing, the woman sitting with her cane. Across the seat, the headline read, "Kindness Under Fire. Hollywood star shows grace on NYC train." Keanu sighed. "I didn't want this to become a thing," he said, stirring his coffee. The owner nodded. "Sometimes the world needs reminders. But at someone else's pain?" Keanu asked quietly. "I don't want her destroyed. I just wanted to avoid conflict." The man folded the paper. "You didn't destroy her. She did that by forgetting how to treat others." Keanu nodded but didn't smile. The fame, the attention, it never sat well with him. To him, doing the right thing wasn't supposed to be a performance. It was supposed to be natural, silent, unseen. That evening, Keanu visited a shelter he often supported. It was in the Lower East Side, hidden between brick buildings and graffiti-covered fences. He didn't come with cameras. He didn't make speeches. He just showed up with boxes of supplies, blankets, shoes, food. He greeted every person there by name. They knew him not as a movie star, but as someone who listened. One of the staff members, a woman named Leela, approached him with her phone. "You've seen the video, right?" she asked. He nodded. "Yeah. People are talking about it everywhere," she said. "They're inspired. But will it last?" he asked. "Or will they scroll past tomorrow?" She didn't answer. Meanwhile, back at Mrs. McLean's apartment, her world continued to shrink. Neighbors stopped greeting her. Her book club canceled their weekly gathering. Even the postman gave her a strange look that made her feel smaller than she had in years. She turned on the television for distraction, but there he was again. Keanu Reeves on the news, helping at the shelter, smiling at children, cleaning dishes after a meal. "He's playing a part," she muttered bitterly. But deep down, something in her stirred. Something uncomfortable, something she didn't want to name. That night, alone in her apartment, she went to her closet and pulled out an old box of letters. Among them were yellowed photos of her husband, now long gone, and letters he had written from Vietnam. One note stood out. "Remember, we're all just people trying to get home. Be kind to everyone you meet on the way." She stared at it for a long time. The next morning, she woke up early. She put on her best coat, not to impress, but because it reminded her of the woman she used to be before bitterness built walls around her. She stepped out of her apartment and walked toward the train station. She didn't know what she was going to do exactly. Apologize? Explain? Find someone to talk to? But before she got to the platform, her eyes fell on a small gathering near the entrance. A few people stood around a man playing violin, the same man who had been playing the night she blocked the seat. She walked closer, listening. The melody was soft, familiar. The violinist saw her and smiled kindly. She opened her mouth to speak, but then someone else stepped forward from the crowd. It was Jasmine, her neighbor. "Mrs. McLean," Jasmine said gently, "there's someone here to see you." Behind her, stepping forward from the shadow of the pillar, was Keanu Reeves. The moment froze. Mrs. McLean stared. Her heart beat faster. Keanu nodded respectfully. "I believe we didn't get a chance to properly meet." Her voice cracked. You came back? I wanted to take the same train," he said, "see if anything had changed." She looked down. Her hands trembled. But then she did something she hadn't done in years. She took off her hat, bowed her head and whispered, "I'm sorry." Keanu's smile was soft and sincere. That's all anyone ever really wants to hear. The people around them watched in silence, some with tears in their eyes. But before the moment could settle, someone behind them gasped. A stranger in the crowd stepped forward, eyes wide. "You're the woman from the video," he said to Mrs. McLean. "You're the one who—" "Yes," she interrupted quietly. "I'm the one who forgot how to be human." And that was when the train arrived, but no one boarded, because what happened next would change more than just their lives. The second train ride, the train doors opened with a hiss, the familiar hum of the city flowing into the platform like a low whisper. Yet this time no one rushed in. No one scrambled for seats. Instead, they stood frozen, watching the quiet scene unfolding near the column. An aging woman in a soft blue coat and a man whose presence seemed to carry weight without effort. Mrs. McLean stood across from Keanu Reeves, her hands still wrinkled and firm, but trembling from something deeper than age. Not fear, not shame, something quieter. It was reflection. It was the fragile process of understanding the damage caused by years of unseen bitterness. Keanu did not press her. He didn't ask for more words. He didn't speak of forgiveness like some grand performance. He just stood, as he had on the train that day, calm and still, offering space for someone else to become better. And somehow, that silence was more powerful than any lecture. "Will you ride with me?" Mrs. McLean asked suddenly, her voice shaking. The question surprised her as much as it did everyone else, but Keanu nodded. "If you want me to." The two walked side by side toward the train, and slowly, the rest of the crowd began to move too. Not with their usual haste, but as if the act of boarding the train was something sacred today, something about trust, respect, patience. No pushing, no loud conversations. The city for a rare moment was still. Inside the train, the seats were mostly empty, but Mrs. McLean didn't rush toward one. Instead, she gestured toward the middle bench, a spot where no cane blocked the way, where people could sit freely without judgment. She sat first, then motioned for Keanu to sit beside her. He did. Opposite them sat Jasmine, who looked like she had just witnessed something rare and fragile, like a flower blooming in concrete. She gave Mrs. McLean a soft nod. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. The train began to move, the rhythm of the tracks setting a gentle beat beneath their feet. And for a long while there were no words, only the soft clack of steel and the quiet hum of a city that for once wasn't in a rush. Finally, Mrs. McLean spoke. "I used to teach children," she said. "For 30 years. I always told them to treat others fairly, but somewhere along the way, I stopped listening to my own lessons." Keanu turned slightly. "What changed?" She stared out the window. "My husband passed. Then my son stopped calling. My neighbors got younger, louder, different. Everything changed around me, and I didn't know how to change with it. So I stopped trying. And when you stop trying, bitterness moves in. It makes itself comfortable. You don't even notice it's there until one day, you hear yourself say something awful. The confession didn't come with tears. It came with the heavy sigh of someone unpacking years of silent regret. My son lives across the city now," she added. "Has 2 kids. I haven't seen them in 4 years. Last time we spoke, we argued about politics. I told him he didn't understand the world. But maybe it was me who didn't understand anymore." Keanu listened. Really listened. His gaze didn't drift. His posture didn't shift. He had mastered the rare gift of stillness, being present without interruption. "When the video went viral," she continued, "I thought people would forget in a day. I thought it was just noise. But then Jasmine knocked on my door with a box of groceries, and she said, 'I'm not doing this because you deserve it. I'm doing it because someone has to start being kind again.'" Keanu smiled faintly. "Jasmine sounds like a good neighbor. Better than I ever was." The train slowed at the next station. A man in a faded army jacket stepped on with a limp. He scanned the car, his eyes locking briefly with Keanu's before settling on the Empty space beside Mrs. McLean. Without a word, she shifted her bag and patted the seat next to her. "You sure?" the man asked, surprised. "Yes," she said. "Please." He sat down with a thankful grunt, and for the first time in what felt like years, Mrs. McLean leaned slightly toward a stranger, instead of away. Keanu watched, his chest warming with something he rarely let himself feel. Hope, not the grand, cinematic kind. The quiet, everyday kind that whispered, "People can change. The world isn't doomed. Even old hearts can soften." As the ride continued, other passengers boarded. Some recognized Keanu. A few whispered, some just smiled respectfully. But what struck them more than his presence was the unusual energy in the car. People were kind. A man helped an older woman lift her shopping bag. A teenager gave up his seat without being asked. Someone passed a bottle of water to a tired construction worker who had fallen asleep on his feet. It was like the train had become a moving sanctuary, not because of fame, not because of fear, but because kindness, once witnessed, had become contagious. By the time the train approached its final stop, Mrs. McLean turned to Keanu once more. "You could have embarrassed me. You could have posted something yourself, called me out. Why didn't you?" He thought for a moment. Because shame doesn't heal people. Only grace does. Those words struck deep. Mrs. McLean reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small photograph. It was her son, smiling, with 2 children beside him. "I think it's time I call him," she said. "He'll answer," Keanu replied. As the train doors opened, the passengers slowly stepped out, not with the usual shuffle and hurry, but with purpose, like they were walking out of a place where something important had just happened. Something unspoken. Something powerful. Outside the station, the sun had begun to set, casting warm golden light over the streets. Jasmine turned to Mrs. McLean. "Do you want to walk back with me?" Mrs. McLean smiled. "Yes, but first, I need to do something." She walked over to a nearby payphone, a rare thing to find these days, and slid in a few coins. Her hands trembled as she dialed. It rang twice. Then a voice answered. "Hello? Michael. It's me, your mother." There was silence on the other end. "I saw the video," he finally said. "I know," she whispered. "I'm sorry. For everything. And if it's not too late, I'd like to meet your children." Keanu stood nearby, not listening, just waiting. He didn't need to hear the words to understand the moment. As the call ended, Mrs. McLean looked up, her eyes glistening. "He said he'll bring them this weekend." "That's good," Keanu said. "No," she replied, her voice cracking. "That's everything." But just as they started to leave, a black SUV pulled up to the curb. A man stepped out wearing a tailored suit and dark sunglasses. His posture was stiff, official. He scanned the area and walked toward Keanu. "Sir," he said, "we have a situation, and it's urgent." Keanu's face shifted. "What kind of situation?" "Your name is trending again. Not because of the train ride." Keanu narrowed his eyes. "Then what?" The man handed him a tablet. The screen showed another video, one that had just surfaced minutes ago. The title read, "Actor helps elderly woman on train. But what the bodyguard did next will stun you," and the thumbnail. It showed a still image of Keanu leaving the VIP car, followed by a man being pushed. Keanu looked up slowly. "That never happened." The man nodded. "Exactly. Someone's spreading fake clips, and they're gaining traction fast." Jasmine stepped forward. "But why would someone do that?" The man's jaw tightened. "Because someone doesn't like what you represent." Keanu stared at the screen. The warmth of the evening sun faded into a chill. "Then we better find out who's behind it," he said quietly. And just like that, the peaceful moment dissolved into something darker. The hidden hand behind the lies, the soft orange hue of the sunset had barely faded when the shadows of something darker began to stretch across the city. The quiet kindness from the train ride was still alive in some corners, smiles on strangers' faces, polite gestures in crowded shops, soft words replacing harsh ones. But as the night deepened, so did the noise online. It began like a whisper, like a strange wind curling through comment sections and hashtags, and then all at once it turned sharp. Keanu Reeves staged the whole train video. Caught faking kindness, actor exposed, VIP privilege disguised as humility. The headlines came faster than anyone could catch them, and with them came a swarm of voices, some curious, some angry, others hungry for controversy. The peaceful story that had softened so many hearts was now being twisted into something it never was. Inside a quiet studio apartment overlooking the East River, a man sat hunched over a desk. The light from 4 monitors lit his face, revealing sharp cheekbones, narrow eyes, and fingers that danced across the keyboard with mechanical speed. His name was Derek Shaw, a former media strategist turned viral manipulator. He knew how to twist truth into outrage, how to spin gold into garbage, and garbage into gold. Not because he hated the world, but because he believed people didn't deserve purity. To him, sincerity was weakness, and destroying it was an art. He had seen the original video and felt something stir. Not admiration, not shame, anger. Because kindness, when real, reminded him of what he had lost long ago, and that was unbearable. So he clipped a moment from the train's security footage, completely separate from Keanu's ride, and edited it to suggest that Keanu's bodyguard had pushed someone to clear space. He used deepfake overlays, distorted audio, and planted fake comments across thousands of accounts he controlled. He smiled as the metrics climbed. "They want to believe in heroes," he whispered, "but they love watching them fall." Elsewhere, Keanu sat in the back of the black SUV, his expression unreadable. Jasmine sat beside him, worry clear in her eyes, while Mrs. McLean had returned home, unaware of how quickly the tide was turning again. "Why now?" Jasmine asked. "Why would someone wait until today?" Keanu looked out the window. Because kindness was starting to spread, and some people can't stand that. The driver pulled up to a private office building downtown. It was quiet. No signs, no logos, just tinted windows and security codes. Inside, Keanu was greeted by Lena, a digital forensics expert he had trusted for years. She didn't hug him. She didn't offer sympathy. Just data. "I traced the video," she said. "Whoever released it is using a deep web chain of servers. Hard to trace, but not impossible." Keanu nodded. "And the source?" "A user named Vitriol77. He's connected to 3 previous smear campaigns, 2 against environmentalists, 1 against a teacher who stopped a school shooting. All of them were trending for a day, then destroyed by counter-narratives within hours." "So this guy targets people who inspire?" Jasmine asked. "Yes," Lena replied. "And he's good. Most people would never know they were watching a lie." Keanu leaned over the monitor. He watched the edited video again, this time through Lena's software, which highlighted every manipulated frame in red. The truth was right there, beneath the surface. A lie wearing truth's skin. "Can you undo it?" he asked. "I can expose it," Lena said, "but that doesn't mean people will believe it. The internet doesn't care about truth, it cares about clicks." Keanu sat back, silent. Then, softly, he said, "Then maybe it's time we stop fighting with clicks and start fighting with real people." "You mean offline?" Lena raised a brow. He nodded. "The train didn't go viral because of cameras. It went viral because people felt something. We need to make them feel again." Jasmine turned toward him. "But how?" Keanu thought for a long moment. Then he said, "We start where it all began, on that train." The next morning, word spread quietly through neighborhood message boards, local cafes, and shelter volunteers. There would be a gathering on the 8th Avenue line. Not a protest, not a campaign, something different. They called it the Ride of Respect. People from every part of the city showed up. Teachers, janitors, teenagers, veterans, immigrants, artists. They dressed in simple clothes, brought no signs, no slogans, just one promise, that every person who stepped on that train would be greeted with kindness, no matter who they were. Keanu was the last to arrive. No fanfare, no announcements, just a soft nod as he stepped aboard the same train car from that day. The same pole, the same middle bench. The ride began. This time the seats filled quickly, but no one was blocked, no one was judged. A young, black boy offered a seat to an elderly white man. A woman with tattoos helped a mother with her stroller. A construction worker high-fived a man in a suit. Jasmine filmed quietly, not for fame, but to capture the mood. It wasn't about Keanu anymore. It was about something bigger, something human. Across town, Derek Shaw saw the video feed on one of his monitors. His lips tightened. "They're doing it again," he muttered. He started typing furiously, preparing another false headline, another twisted clip. But this time, he was too slow. Lena had released her forensic analysis to hundreds of journalists, real ones. And alongside it, she released a personal letter from Keanu. Not defensive, not angry, just honest. In the letter, Keanu wrote, "We all stumble. We all forget how to be kind. But when we remember, even for a second, the world becomes a better place. This isn't about me. It's about what we choose to be when no one is watching." The letter spread like wildfire. News anchors read it on air, tears in their eyes. Schools printed it on posters. Even politicians, often too busy for anything human, quoted it during press conferences. And in one small apartment above the river, Derek Shaw watched everything fall apart. His lies exposed, his bots banned, his reach broken. But instead of rage, he felt something he hadn't in years. Quiet. He leaned back in his chair. For the first time in a long while, he listened. To the sound of laughter in the park outside, to a child's voice singing off-key, to the train in the distance carrying people home, and deep inside something cracked. Meanwhile, Mrs. McLean stood by her window, holding a small card in her hand. It was a train ticket. Her son had sent it with a note that read, "Bring cookies for the kids. They've been asking about you." She smiled, and for the first time in years, the smile reached her eyes. Back on the train, Keanu stood up as the car pulled into the last stop. He looked around. People clapped. Not for him, but for each other. And, as the doors opened, he said only one thing. "Let's not forget this feeling." But just as he stepped off, Lena rushed toward him with her phone. "You need to see this," she said urgently. On her screen was a live feed. A young woman was being harassed outside a coffee shop, pushed, shouted at. The crowd stood frozen, filming. But then, someone stepped in, a teenager, barely 17. He put himself between the woman and the attacker, and when asked later why, he said one thing. "Because that guy on the train showed me how to be brave." Keanu's eyes glistened. The ripples had begun. The ripple becomes a wave. The city moved differently now. It wasn't loud, not yet, not dramatic. But something had shifted under the surface, like the first quiet rumble before a storm. Not one that destroys, but one that washes away the grime, the bitterness, the habits people forgot were ugly. You could feel it on the subways in the way strangers looked at each other just a little longer. You could see it on the sidewalks where more people held doors open, where someone actually stopped to help a blind man cross the street instead of rushing past. But in a downtown studio apartment that hadn't seen sunlight in days, Derek Shaw sat with bloodshot eyes and clenched fists. He had lost control of the narrative. Worse, he had lost control of himself. His plan had been precise. Spread the fake video, fracture the belief in kindness, drag the world back into the mud where he thought it belonged. But the world had refused to stay down this time. Not because of Keanu's celebrity. Not because of viral algorithms. Because people had felt something. And feelings, real ones, were harder to fight than facts. He hadn't expected that. Worse, he hadn't expected to remember. as he stared at the footage of the teenager who stepped in to protect the woman outside the coffee shop. A memory cracked through the walls he had built around himself. A flash of a young boy, him, standing in a crowded cafeteria. Another boy being bullied. No one helping. Derek had stepped in back then. Small, terrified, stuttering. He got punched for it. A broken tooth. But that wasn't what stayed with him. It was what his teacher said after. She had taken him aside, cleaned his wound, looked him in the eye and whispered, "Bravery isn't loud. It's the quiet voice that tells you to stand anyway." He had forgotten that voice. Forgotten who he used to be, but now it was back. He turned off his monitors, stood up, and for the first time in years, Derek Shaw left his apartment without a plan to ruin something. Meanwhile, across the city, Jasmine stood in her modest kitchen, watching the ripple unfold. The story was now on every platform: radio, print, digital. Teachers were using it in classrooms. Parents talked about it over dinner. Churches and mosques printed out the letter Keanu had written, placing it on bulletin boards. And all the while, the man at the center of it all stayed quiet. Keanu didn't want credit, didn't want the spotlight. He had returned to the shelter, sweeping floors, stacking supplies, helping a young girl write her college application. He smiled at people but said little. It wasn't about the noise. It was about the work. And yet, something unexpected was building behind the scenes. A national network reached out. They wanted to honor him with a Lifetime Kindness Award. Another outlet offered a documentary deal. A large publishing house proposed a book deal titled Stillness in the Storm. Keanu said no to all of them. But Lena saw something bigger. She met with Jasmine one evening in a quiet cafe and laid out her idea. "It's not about turning this into a brand," Lena said, sliding a laptop across the table. "It's about turning this into a movement." "You mean something organized?" Jasmine asked. "Yes. We take the ride of respect and make it real. Trains in every major city. Same day, same hour. No celebrities. No ads. Just people showing up for each other. One ride, one promise. Kindness, without agenda." Jasmine's eyes widened. "And you think people will do it?" Lena smiled. "They already are. We're just giving it a name. They called it One Ride." Within 48 hours, posters went up in bookstores, on lampposts, and in high schools. The design was simple. Two people sitting on a bench, their shadows blending into one. Below it the words, no labels, no lines. One Ride. Keanu wasn't even told until after it went live. When he saw the poster, he blinked slowly. Then he chuckled. "You're sneaky," he said to Lena. "You're welcome," she replied. And then came the day. Every subway system in every major city in the country saw something they hadn't seen in decades. People waiting patiently. People giving up seats. People complimenting strangers. In some cars, music played softly. Violinists, guitarists, a cappella singers. And it wasn't just in America. Paris joined in. So did London. Then Cairo, Delhi, Rio, Tokyo. In one powerful day, millions of people, without banners, without speeches, chose to ride beside each other. Not as tribes, not as sides, but as humans. And back in New York, Mrs. McLean boarded the train holding the hands of two small children, her grandchildren. She was quiet, almost trembling with nervousness. But they sat beside her, looking up at her like she was a hero. "Grandma," one of them whispered. "Is this the train where it happened?" She nodded slowly. "Yes. And it's also the train where I remembered who I was." But the story didn't end there, because the real world doesn't always bend to kindness. It challenges it. And just as the movement grew, another force stirred. Well-funded organization called Echo, known for its divisive media and fear-driven campaigns, started planting seeds against the One Ride event. "They're trying to erase identity," one article claimed. "This is emotional manipulation. Stay angry, stay alert." And then, in a twist that shocked even Lena, Derek Shaw appeared, on live television. He had shaved, worn a plain gray shirt, No digital tricks. No twisted narrative. I was the one behind the fake Keanu video, he said calmly. I spread it. I framed him. I did it because I thought kindness was weakness. The host blinked, stunned. Why are you telling us this now? Because I was wrong, Derek said, and I'm tired of being wrong. The clip went viral in hours. People expected a backlash, expected someone to dig into Derek's past and smear him. But the internet, just this once, didn't bite. Instead, they said something rare. Thank you for owning it. Keanu watched the broadcast in silence. Then quietly, he picked up a pen and wrote Derek a note. Truth without grace is a weapon. Grace without truth is hollow. You showed both. Thank you. He signed it without his name. Just a small symbol, a train door opening. Weeks passed, but the ripple was now a wave. Schools began Kindness Week every month. Bus drivers carried extra snacks for tired passengers. Teenagers wrote apology letters to classmates they had bullied. Hospitals launched silent hero boards, honoring custodians and night nurses, and at the center of it all, Keanu kept walking the city streets unnoticed, unpraised, but never alone. People who had watched the train video nodded at him, smiled. Some hugged him, others said nothing, but their eyes spoke volumes. And one night, as the city lights flickered in the distance, Jasmine met Keanu on the rooftop of the shelter. You changed the world, she said. He shook his head. No, I just reminded it. She paused. What comes next? Keanu stared at the stars for a moment, then whispered, Now, we ride through the storm. But just as those words settled into the night air, Lena's phone buzzed with an alert. She looked down, frowned. You should see this, she said, her voice suddenly tense. On her screen was a message, not from a news outlet, not from a fan. It was a letter, a threat. We're watching. Stop spreading this weakness, or we'll stop it for you. Signed by a group calling themselves the Clean Slate. Jasmine swallowed hard. What is that? Keanu looked at the screen. Then he looked back at the city, his voice calm. Something that fears what we've started. And in that moment, the train story was no longer just a movement. It was a battle. The storm, the reckoning, and the light that remained. The wind over New York turned colder in the days that followed, not in temperature, but in spirit. Whispers grew louder. Quiet online forums filled with strange messages. Hashtags that once lifted people were now being hijacked by accounts spewing cynicism and warnings. Kindness is weakness. One ride is manipulation. Trust no one. Lena tracked it all. What started as a wave of human goodness was now under attack. Not with violence, but with distortion. Digital shadows, bots designed to seed doubt, anonymous threats in inboxes of volunteers, even school teachers, who had supported the movement, found themselves targeted by slanderous posts. The storm had arrived, and in the middle of it, Keanu walked through the city with his hood up, hands in pockets, still visiting shelters, still speaking with the same quiet dignity. But now, his steps were slower. Not from fear, but from the weight of knowing that what they were facing wasn't just trolls or critics. It was an organized attempt to poison something beautiful. The group called the Clean Slate wasn't a myth. Lena's digging confirmed it. They weren't a street gang. They weren't even political. They were a network of ideologues who believed society functioned best when divided. That empathy created weakness. That unity was a disease. They operated from the shadows, rarely revealing their real identities, using layers of fake accounts and anonymous proxies. They didn't need guns, they had screens, and their weapon was doubt. They don't want to destroy you, Lena told Keanu late one night in her lab. They want to make you irrelevant. They want to make people forget you ever mattered. Keanu didn't flinch, he simply asked, Then how do we remind them? Lena looked at him. We go public, not just letters, not just rides. I mean you. Your face. Your voice. Live. No edits. No scripts. You tell the world who you are, what you stand for, and you let the truth outshine the noise. Keanu sat quietly. He had always avoided the stage. He had always believed the best moments were the ones no one saw. But this time, that wasn't enough. He nodded slowly. Then let's give them something real to remember. The broadcast was scheduled within 72 hours. It wasn't a press conference, it wasn't a talk show. It was a live stream from a rooftop in Lower Manhattan. No flashy graphics, no dramatic music. Just a single camera, a skyline in the background, and a man in a simple black shirt standing beside a wooden bench. Millions tuned in, some out of curiosity, some to mock, but most out of hope. Keanu stood with his hands at his sides, eyes steady. "I've been called a lot of things," he began. "An actor, a ghost, a symbol. Some say I'm humble, others say I'm fake. I've never been interested in proving anyone wrong. But today, I want to share something with you that no lie can erase." He turned slightly, gesturing to the bench. "This is just a seat, but one day I wasn't allowed to sit on one. Not because there was no space, but because someone looked at me and decided I didn't belong. I didn't argue, I didn't shout, I stood. But I also listened. I listened to the silence in that train, the discomfort, the fear, the anger, and I realized something. We're all riding the same train. We just forgot how to sit beside each other." The feed was quiet. Not even comments scrolled. It was as if the whole world had leaned in. Keanu continued. "The movement you've seen, the rides, the letters, the kindness, it's not mine. It's yours. I didn't start it. You did. Every time you chose compassion over judgment, every time you gave without being asked. That's what scares them, not me. You." He paused, looked into the camera, and to those who think they can erase this with lies, you can't. Because the truth isn't just a story, it's a seed. And it's already growing. And then, without warning, the camera cut. Someone had hacked the stream. But in the seconds before it blacked out, something had already changed. Because thousands of people inspired by his words took to the streets, not with protest signs or slogans, but with acts of quiet bravery. In Chicago, a man gave his shoes to a homeless veteran. In Seoul, a teenage girl stopped a bully and walked with the victim to school. In Johannesburg, a retired nurse offered free medical care to a poor neighborhood. The wave could no longer be stopped. But the clean slate made one last move. A fabricated story emerged. Photoshopped images, fake messages, claiming that Keanu had been paid millions to promote the kindness illusion. They framed it as a Hollywood campaign to distract from real suffering. Bots flooded the internet. Forums exploded. Keanu's team was shaken. But then, something unexpected happened. Mrs. McLean stepped forward. The woman from the original train video, once bitter and ashamed, now stood in front of local reporters with her grandchildren at her side. Her voice was frail but firm. "I was the one who blocked the seat," she said. "I said something ugly, not because he deserved it, but because I had forgotten how to be kind. And that man didn't punish me. He forgave me. He showed the world grace. And now, I want to stand up for him." She looked into the camera. "He didn't fake anything. I'm real. My shame was real. My change was real. And if you don't believe me, ask my son. Ask these children who now have their grandmother back." The clip went viral. And this time, even the internet didn't question it. Because it was too raw. Too human. The bots tried, but they were drowned out by millions of voices. And finally, the clean slate cracked. Anonymous leaks exposed their operations. Whistleblowers stepped forward. A former member published internal emails revealing how they had targeted humanitarian movements for years. The group fell apart in days. Months later, the world had changed. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough. One ride had become a yearly tradition. Cities designed train cars just for the event, painted with artwork from school children. Kindness boards were installed in stations, and everywhere, you saw small signs. Sit beside someone new. Keanu never returned to the spotlight. After the rooftop broadcast, he quietly stepped back, donating the rest of his year's earnings to shelters, youth programs, and support groups for bullied teens. One afternoon, Jasmine found him sitting at a train station bench reading a worn book. She sat beside him, smiling. "You okay?" "Better than ever," he said. She nodded. "You know, people still talk about you like you're a myth." He chuckled. "I'm just a man who stood on a train." "No," she said softly. "You're the man who reminded the world how to sit together." He looked at her. "Then maybe now it's time we teach them how to walk." She raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" He stood up, pointed toward the exit. "We've ridden enough. Now we take the next step." Outside the station, a crowd was already gathering, not waiting for a train this time, but walking together hand in hand, stranger beside stranger. A new movement, not just to sit, not just to ride, but to rebuild the world. One step, one person, one act of kindness at a time, and the bench, it stayed there. Empty, waiting, always ready for the next person who needed a place to sit and be seen.